We are live. Perfect. I think we're good. We look like we're all ready to go. We'll just take it away. Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another Friday afternoon. And you know what that means. It's time for the Bringin It Home show. We're on, I think, episode 5 now, episode 4 or 5. The following's been building. The anticipation builds every week, and we are excited to be here. Today, our special guest, Alex Cohen, is the play-by-play broadcaster for the Iowa Cubs, AAA affiliate of the Chicago Cubs. On my other side over here, we have Roman Weinberg, Director of Operations, live from the field right now. And I myself am Tucker LaBelle, Social Media Coordinator for the Field of Dreams movie site. Welcome to another Friday, Bringing It Home.
Dreamers, happy Friday. 1st of May. Hard to believe it's already May. No baseball in our lives. Alex, you're very familiar with that. But first off, thanks for joining us, man. Thanks for taking the time out of your schedule.
Really appreciate you guys having me, and we are really bringing it true. We're bringing it home. All three of us are at home in different locations. So, yeah, which is a play on words right there. But no, really appreciate you guys having me. Thanks. I appreciate it.
Yeah. So we've been looking forward to this, Tucker and I, all week. But Dan Evans as well
Great
told
guy.
me to say hi.
Dan's
so I had him on our podcast, the Dream Nation show, had him on last week, and I told him we were going to have you on as a special guest tonight, and he's just like, yeah, he's a good guy. You got to tell Alex, hey. So he says hi.
Dan, good too. We've had quite a chat in the press box. I mean, that guy is Dan's a baseball encyclopedia. So once you get on the topic of talking about the game, I mean, he understands it better than most people in this world. So he's a pretty good guest. Yeah,
and the stories he has, I mean, he could ramble on. I mean, you look at your watch and it's 3 hours later, and it feels like 5 minutes. But it's great.
It's a place where you sit down at a restaurant with a frosty beverage and just talk about the game, and then you're closing the bar down. So
yeah, exactly.
And I'll give it to Dan. Dan's Twitter game is amazing. That's one thing I'll give him. He's golden with that. If you're watching now, Dan, we're happy you're watching. I see some viewers popping in here. But yeah, shout out Dan.
Yeah, he's the Twitter king.
Yep.
All right. So, Alex, we got some questions your way, and really a tale of two halves here. So first, we're going to ask some just baseball questions and related to your job, but also switch to Field of Dreams later on here in this session. So first off, tell us a little bit about you and how you got started in sports broadcasting.
Sure. So I'm from Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. Grew up in Ambler, which is about 25 minutes outside the city. Diehard Philadelphia sports fan growing up. So Phillies, Eagles, Sixers, Flyers. I played baseball growing up, but all the other sports. Just started broadcasting at a young age, whether it was video games of my cousins were playing and I was calling the game. And then in high school, 3 buddies and I started the sports broadcasting club at our high school. Yeah. And it's kind of ironic because 2 of those friends are still in the industry. My friend Josh Getzoff is the pre- and post-game show host and the play-by-play broadcaster for the Pittsburgh Penguins. And Stephen Watson is a sports anchor, sports reporter at WISN News in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. So all 3 of us are still in it. But we started the sports broadcasting club at our high school. So I actually broadcasted basketball, football, field hockey, soccer, lacrosse before I even broadcasted baseball. But I knew from a young age that I wanted to call baseball. I just listened to Harry Callis, Phillies broadcaster, all throughout my childhood. And he had that deep voice that sounded like it was seasoned in 30 years of smoking cigars and drinking whiskey. And that's what I wanted to do. So I went to college. I went to Indiana University in Bloomington, Indiana. Was in fraternity out there. Was going to play baseball, but I blew up my arm. And it's probably a good thing because collegiate baseball has no place for 82-mile-per-hour flat fastballs. So that was probably a blessing in disguise. Did student radio. So I did student radio for 4 years. Called the baseball games, football games, basketball games. Started interning in minor league baseball 2009 with the Lehigh Valley Iron Pigs. AAA affiliate for the Philadelphia Phillies. And I remember my first day on the job, I went up to the broadcaster, said, "What do you need me to do?" And one of the broadcasters said, "I hate the feed that we have. Can you go get me a chicken sandwich?" So that was my introduction to minor league baseball. But no, those are, it was John Schaefer and Matt Province. They were the 2 broadcasters, and they're 2 of my best friends in the industry. And, they kind of taught me everything from how to call a game to how to prepare for a game to how to endure the grind of 140 games in 152 days. So I started there, fetching the broadcasters chicken sandwiches and then doing pre- and post-game interviews, pre- and post-game shows. And then my second year there, I did more of the on-air stuff, and I actually filled in for a broadcast while Matt Province, the lead broadcaster, his wife was having a kid. So at that point, I knew, like, I'm all in, all the eggs in one basket. I want to call games for a living. Summer after I graduated college, I worked for the Gateway Grizzlies, which is a Frontier League team, independent league team just outside of St. Louis. And my first summer salary was $250 a month, and I also got, I got housing. I lived with a host family, and I lived in the basement. And after every game, they had a plate of steak, a plate of chicken salad, and a case of beer waiting for me. And that was my payment for the summer.
That's not a bad gig.
It was great. I mean, at 22 years old, I mean, that was all I really wanted.
Oh, yeah.
So I really enjoyed the summer there. I worked under a broadcaster named Adam Young, who now is the voice of New Mexico State college sports. He does football, basketball, and baseball there. And Adam is the hardest working broadcaster I know. I mean, I learned how to prepare for a game just by watching him do it. So I got to learn a lot then. Then after that summer, moved back to Philadelphia, called some college basketball games at Wagner University and Rider University, which is in New Jersey. It's in central New Jersey. And one night I couldn't sleep, and I emailed every single minor league baseball team. It took 6.5 hours. So I did it like 10:30 at night to 5 o'clock in the morning. It was just, couldn't sleep at all. Emailed every single minor league baseball team. I got 20 responses. I got 10, no, we don't have anything. 10, yeah, we'll interview you. 5 final rounds. 1 job offer from the Huntsville Stars, which at that point was a AA affiliate for the Milwaukee Brewers. And I called games with them for 2 years. After that, I actually spent a season with the Oakland Athletics, not broadcasting, media relations, and just a broadcasting assistant. So I worked more down on the field, getting audio from the players. And that's when I realized that I talk way too much not to have a mic in front of my face. So I wanted to get back into doing play-by-play. Went to Australia, worked in the Australian Baseball League for, I guess, a summer out there, which would be a fall and a winter here. Worked for the Melbourne Aces. And then I just started from the ground up. I worked for a rookie league team for the Kansas City Royals, the Idaho Falls Chuckers for a year. I spent 2 years in single A with the Bowling Green Hot Rods, low A affiliate of the Tampa Bay Rays, and now entering my 3rd year with the Iowa Cubs. So I've checked all the leagues, rookie league, single A, double A, triple A off my list. Also been able to broadcast in Australia. Also worked for the World Baseball Softball Confederation, which is all international baseball tournaments in which they're bringing baseball back to the Olympics. They were supposed to do 2020, but now until 2021. Working baseball tournaments called the Premier 12, the U23, the U18 tournaments that are all point generators to provide rankings for the Olympics. So been able to call games in Taiwan, Japan, Colombia. So just trying to get stamps on my passport. It's all for decoration. But it's been a real fun experience and really enjoy being out here in Iowa. I mean, I've said this before. There are no fans like Cubs fans that I've really enjoyed in my 10 years working in broadcasting. It's a national fan base, and it's really cool to be a part of.
Yeah, Iowa's a great state. You know, it's the heavenly state. We're Iowa nice out here. So whenever we have people out,
I mean, coming from Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, and the East Coast, it's a different mindset, and of course, it takes getting adjusted to a little bit. But there is such a thing called Iowa nice, and it's true to its form. Man, you guys are great people.
Yeah. Yes. Well, thank you. Not too bad yourself. And you give, I just got to say, too, from your story, you give true meaning to the saying, go the distance. You've gone the distance and then some.
Yeah. I mean, I've taken my fair share of bus trips and plane rides and bus breakdowns and 2 a.m. flights. But it's all part of it, man. I mean, when you sit back 10, 20, 30, 40 years from now, I mean, it's hopefully I'm calling games then, but hopefully I can tell a heck of a story. So that'll be fun.
Yeah, and those are times that you remember too, right?
For better or for worse, right?
Amen to that. All right, Roman. So I got a question here for you too. Anyone who's watched the show knows that I have a monitor over here, and that I'm not ignoring anyone. I'm looking at the list of questions we've prepared. So this is a question that I feel most people in voice-required professions probably get asked a lot. I know listening to Vince Scully a lot, he's been asked this question, so I feel like it was natural to ask you. So when you started broadcasting, and even as a child and growing up, did you feel that you had a natural talent for this, or was this something you wanted so badly that you were going to work to get that ability?
I don't know if talent was the way to describe it, but I knew that I loved talking because that got me in trouble for the first 18 years of my life. And I knew that I loved talking about baseball. So I didn't know if it was a talent. I knew it was an interest, and I knew that it was a passion. So that just kind of transformed into looking at the stats and listening to broadcasters and hearing guys like, as you said, Vince Scully. For me, it was Harry Callis. And nowadays it's John Miller, it's Pat Hughes. And being a student of the broadcast and just listening to them and just trying to learn more, talk to a scout, talk to a player, talk to a member of the front office, and just learn. And that's when the knowledge becomes more, it replicates into talent and getting those reps. And I think that talent, it's all predicated on hard work and dedication. And I didn't just wake up, you're like, oh, I kind of have a deeper voice like a Harry Callis. It just doesn't work that way. I just think that it really started from a young age that I was interested in the sport. I talked way too much. And then when I realized that I wanted to get into the industry, just learning, just, keeping an open mind, keeping an open notepad, and listening to the guys who do it the best. And that's how I've been able to get where I am.
Great answer.
Awesome.
Well, before Roman, you take the next question here too. Those who are watching right now, please drop any questions you have in the comment section below. I can see them live here and actually put them to the screen. If you want to tweet at us, whatever it may be, get questions to us, get questions to Alex. We will keep going with our questions until we see questions from you.
Yeah. So again, Dreamers Bringing It Home. It is Friday, May 1st. So thanks for joining us. Special guest Alex Cohen, play-by-play broadcaster for the AAA affiliate Iowa Cubs out of Des Moines. Alex, another question for you. So obviously we're fortunate enough to have you on the show because there's no baseball, unfortunately, given this pandemic. So given the uncertainty of the season at this point, we don't know if there will be one at this point. A lot of question marks. What is the vibe like, with you and the other front office staff of the Iowa Cubs? Optimism, uncertainty. How are you guys dealing with this?
It's all encompassing, but the main factor, May 1, is stay safe. And the quicker that we are proving that we're staying safe and there's not as much show of the virus spreading and people social distancing and people making sure that if they do feel not well, that they're staying home or getting tested, the more people do that, the better chances that it won't spread, and the better chances are we're going to have baseball. So it's all predicated on people doing what they're supposed to do. If they do that, then baseball, hopefully there'll be a trickle-down effect from the CDC to Major League Baseball to minor league baseball that we can play. I mean, yes, it's uncertain, and yes, it's tough, but we don't control it. We don't control how this virus spreads. So if it doesn't spread, there's a good chance that we can play. If it does spread, we probably won't play. So it's just completely out of our control. But for the Iowa Cubs, we're doing what we can to ensure that our employees are safe, and we're giving back to the community to make sure that they'll be safe to hopefully bring baseball back to Iowa and minor league baseball towns across the country later this summer.
Amen to that.
That's fantastic. Yeah. Fantastic. Tucker, you got a question?
I do, and you've kind of already addressed it in a little bit, but I want to know the unbiased opinion of if you had to broadcast any other sport, what would it be and why? And maybe, speaking from experience, what was your other most favorite sport to broadcast and the most entertaining for you?
From a broadcast standpoint, I've always considered myself a one-trick pony. Baseball was all melodically, pace-wise, tone-wise, has always been more of my delivery. You look at all these other sports like basketball and football, it's just so fast-paced. It's so rabid, and you're not able to really articulate any of the facts or the backstories. it takes a talent to broadcast, hockey and basketball and football because everything moves so fast and your brain has to move quickly to translate all the information. Broadcasting baseball is more of an art form because you need to fit the pieces of the puzzle together. You get the backstory and the personal anecdotes, this day in baseball history, the painting the picture of the sky and the wind and the defensive alignment. So broadcasting is different for baseball. I'm a diehard football fan. I mean, I would say that just with fantasy football and growing up a diehard Eagles fan, if I had to pick another sport that I'm as passionate about, it would be football. But just from a pure broadcast standpoint and the pace and the tone and just the rhythm of the call, I'm a one-trick pony, man. I've thrown all my eggs in one basket. I let the big dog eat. I'm just, I'm all baseball all the time.
That's good. That's perfect. Roman, if you don't mind, I actually have a question off of that. And I can kind of interject there. So for the viewers out there who are not familiar with the broadcasting world or how it works, can you briefly walk us through your game day, what it looks like, start to finish?
Absolutely. So let's say it's a home game. It's a 6:30, 8 p.m. first pitch at Principal Park. And we do all our games on the 8s for a sponsorship. But, okay, 6:30 game. I'll show up at around 9 o'clock a.m. I also work in sales with the team, and I'm also their travel coordinator. So with the travel coordinator, when a player gets promoted up to the big leagues or comes down to AAA, you have to help facilitate their travel options. So getting them to the airport, getting them to the ballpark, making sure that they have a hotel reservation booked for them once they get to the ballpark. So making sure that happens. I have about 35, 36 sales accounts, and making sure that they're being serviced on a weekly, monthly, daily basis if they have season tickets, if they're coming out and throwing a first pitch, if they have a big group, if it's somebody's birthday, if they have a radio sponsorship that they want changed. Like let's say they have a commercial for Memorial Day and it's June 2nd. Do they have that commercial that they want picked for June 2nd? And if they don't, record it for them. So just check all the boxes with that. Make sure that my clients, everything's okay with them. Make sure from a travel standpoint, everything's okay. And then the players show up, coaches show up around noon, around 12:30. You go down to the locker room. You try to get a lineup card. You try to figure out if there's a transaction, if somebody got hurt, if somebody's getting scratched, if somebody got traded, if somebody got released. So you go down, you ask those questions. You come back, you try to write down your scorebook initially, not any of the background information, but just the scorebook. So if something happens, if you get sick, if there's a technical issue, you at least have the scorebook written down. So when the game starts, you can go to that. I'll usually go down to the field around 1:30, 2:30 when the team is stretching, throwing. They take batting practice. I go down there and I stand by the cage. I mean, my goal starting a couple years ago was to have one unique conversation with somebody every day. And it didn't have to be a player. It didn't have to be a coach, but it could be a scout. It could be the strength coach. It could be the general manager. It could be a media member. So just, Roma, are you going to say something? Oh, we're good? Okay. So just being able to have
had a staff member.
Oh, you're good. You're good.
Sorry.
So just being able to have that unique conversation with somebody and just learn something. Just take a 10, 15 minutes out of your day and learn something that if you can use on the broadcast, great. If not, it's just more information to have in your brain. So you're down there, batting practice, usually get off the field around 4:30, go up to the press box. Usually there's 5, 6 scouts there. Have a conversation with them, see who they're scouting, what they're looking for. That's when the food normally comes. So try to grab a bite to eat. It's funny how that coincides, but grab a bite to eat. Make sure that we're fueled. I don't like eating right before broadcast. Just you want to be able to digest and make sure that there's nothing caught in your throat when you're about to go on for your pregame. Around 5:15, I go back into the press box, go back into the radio booth, and I fill out the rest of my book. We have game notes, which are provided by the media relations staff for each team. You go through those game notes. You highlight 5 or 6 points that you want to use during the broadcast. You write them down in your scorebook. Then I'll do the whole baseball reference thing, the whole MILB.com thing, look for trends for the players. Last 5 games, last 10 games, how they do against righties, how they do against lefties, how they do at home, how they do on the road. If it's their birthday, if one of their friends just got drafted or traded, you just look for those backstories for about 45 minutes to an hour. Then you get to about 6:15. You make sure that you have your pregame interview, which you get down on the field after batting practice. Make sure that works. You do about a 20-minute pregame show. Then the game starts at 6:38 p.m. Hopefully lasts about 3 hours. Done at 9:38 p.m. A 20-minute postgame show ends at 10 p.m. Then you just sit around and you make sure that everything went smoothly, that there's no scoring changes. Maybe I'll listen back to some of my audio to see if it sounded well. Then I'll get back to my apartment around 11 p.m. and do the whole thing over again the next day.
It's awesome.
That's it?
That's it. It's a pretty crazy day. Pretty boring.
Yeah, and I was gonna say too, because I know you're a sales executive for the Iowa Cubs, and obviously for us in the sport management industry, we know if you're in sports, it doesn't matter your position. You could be in the janitorial staff. You got to sell some tickets, right?
Yep.
I mean, you got to get in, you got to sit down, you got to sell. So it's pretty cool to hear that. But my goodness, you don't have enough going on.
No. I mean, and early on in my career, there was a point that I was also the media relations director. So I was doing the game notes. And with these smaller staffs, sometimes you're the mascot for a birthday party at 10:30 in the morning. I remember being on the back of a truck in a mascot costume during a St. Patty's Day parade. So, I mean, it's a good way to lose weight, keep off that ballpark food. But yeah, I mean, you learn to do a little bit of everything working in professional baseball, and it's experience that I wouldn't trade for a minute.
Yep. That's the beauty of what we do. But boy, the smell of those mascot uniforms, I could do without that.
Yeah, no, it's not great. Not great.
No, not great. So now we've touched on the fact that there might not be a season, right? Yeah. Hopefully there is one, but regardless, the Cubs have some darn good players and some pretty interesting prospects, right? You got the Albert Alzolay, who's had his day in the sun and had his major league debut last year. You have Dylan Maples, you have Dakota Meeks. You got a lot of exciting young guys as well. Who are you interested in watching when there's ball to be played?
Yeah, I mean, there's a couple. Obviously, there's a lot of people talking about Nico Horner, first-round draft pick for the Cubs, 2018, possibly starting the season with Iowa just to get him every day at bats. I mean, you see what the Cubs did during the offseason, signing a guy like Jason Kipnis, who has a plethora of big league experience, and then having a guy like Daniel Descalso possibly playing Ian Happ at second, David Bodie at second. So they have a lot of second base options, which is Nico's natural position. Now, he could play short, but they have a guy by the name of Javi Baez at short, who I have a feeling is going to get the majority of those starts. So
I think that's taken, yeah.
I would agree. So you have a guy like Nico, and you want to get him every day at bats. So logically, the best place to do that would be in Iowa. Now, that being said, if we do have baseball coming back, and Nico does go to their abbreviated spring training and swings the bat well, they might keep him in the big leagues. But I'm excited to see Nico because if he comes to Iowa, he make his Iowa Cubs debut because last year he was in Double-A Tennessee, completely bypassed us, and then went up to the big leagues. So if Nico does play here, and I've heard nothing but rave reviews about him, it would be cool to see him in an Iowa Cubs uniform. So that would certainly be something to look out for. Also, Iowa-born Colin Ray. Colin was the PCL Pitcher of the Year last year with the Iowa Cubs, was added to the Cubs 40-man roster this year, and was battling out for a fifth starter long reliever role for the Cubs in spring training. Now, there's a lot of pitchers vying for that role for the Cubs right now. Alec Mills part of that, Dwayne Underwood Jr. part of that. So if Colin Ray comes back, it's Iowa's one of their favorite sons back in an Iowa Cubs uniform, and it was a lot of fun having Colin last year. Half of his hometown came to every one of his starts, so definitely boosted our attendance. Colin's also one of the best guys that I've met in the industry. So just having him in an Iowa Cubs uniform, and a guy who has a lot of big league experience for somebody who's only 29 years old, he's a really nice insurance policy to have in the Cubs' back pocket. You talked about Albert Alzolay, and he's been up in the big leagues. He got his first big league win last year. I haven't seen a guy with such tantalizing, pure stuff who could pitch as a starter and a reliever. I mean, the growth that he's made from the beginning of his minor league career, signing for just $10,000 out of Venezuela. And I remember seeing him in A-ball in low A when I was with the Bowling Green Hot Rods in 2016, and he was with the South Bend Cubs. He was good, but he wasn't like this. I mean, he was throwing 91 to 93. Now his fastball's 94 to 96. The changeup is nasty. The curveball is nasty. He has legit 3+ pitches, which if he stays healthy and he gains a little bit more consistency on that changeup, he either could be a devastating back end of the bullpen guy or could be a number 2 or number 3 starter. He's that good.
Yeah, it's crazy. And Alex, I'm going to throw another question your way just on that. So this year, obviously if baseball comes back, it's a shortened season for Major League Baseball. So what happens to these prospects that have a lot of promise that ordinarily would see more time in AAA, them bypassing AAA altogether? Because look, you look at an 80-game season, a 100-game season, anything could happen. You could have these wild card teams that typically die out early in the postseason and take the cake, right? And win it all this year. So it's just such a different landscape now. How do you think Major League franchises are going to take their assets and move these prospects? What do you think?
It's such a wild card because when baseball comes back, we don't know how big the rosters are going to be.
Yeah.
If it's a 26-man roster, they're going to maneuver their roster differently than if it's a 29-man roster or if it's a 40-man roster with a taxi squad. So it's all based upon what Major League Baseball allows these teams to do. Now, if it's a 26-man roster and you're playing an 80-game season, my guess is they're going to have more hitters because these pitchers aren't going to be throwing as many innings, and they're going to be stretched out a little bit longer going into September and October. So early on in the season, when you haven't thrown that many innings, the pitchers are going to be fresh. That's when you're going to need more situational hitters. And then later in the year, when it's colder, if you're playing into October, then you'll have more arms. Then, because your arm isn't supposed to be throwing in 35-degree weather. So right. I think that the landscape of the season, it completely depends on the schedule, when we start, when we finish, and how many players are allowed to have on the roster at a given time.
Yeah, a lot of variables there.
Yeah,
that's a great point. So here's another question. I guess bounces off that, perfectly talking about players, or you seem to be a guy that likes moments and conversations, and you value those little things, and that.
Hate it.
It sounds like you're almost a voice journalist.
Yeah,
that's interesting. But this question plays into that well. Is there a favorite player you've interacted with or a favorite game you've called? Just that golden moment for you. What was it? When was it? Who was it with?
Okay, I'll go with broadcast first. It was actually this past fall. So I was privileged enough to be able to call the Premier 12 tournament, which was a qualifier for what was supposed to be the 2020 Olympics. Did the first round in Taiwan. I did the super round in Japan. And being able to be on the call for the gold medal game at the Tokyo Dome in Japan when it was Japan versus Korea, it was the coolest experience of my entire life. I was actually on the call with Fox Sports' JP Morosi, and we did an on-field pregame hit about 35 minutes before the game. And I'm walking down there, we're doing an on-field pregame hit, counting down 10, 9, 8. I look up, and there was 47,000 people standing. It is already jam-packed. Nobody sitting in their seats. Everybody's standing. And I look at JP and I say, I can't feel my legs. It was so intoxicating, that atmosphere. And just being on the call for that game that Japan won and watching those fans standing up and having coordinated chants for every single player for 3.5 hours, it was the coolest baseball experience of my life. Hands down, not even a question. My favorite player I've ever interacted with. It's a good question. So this was my first year in minor league baseball with the Huntsville Stars, and my manager at the time was Darnell Coles. Darnell was the number 1 overall pick, first round draft pick for the Mariners, late 80s. Pretty good player, incredible communicator, great guy. And that was my first year as a broadcaster, his first year as a manager. So we were kind of going through the trials and tribulations together. We were pretty close. And we were the Huntsville Stars. We were in Jackson, Tennessee for a 5-game series. I think it was game 3. And it was around 3:30 p.m. And he calls me. And he called me and he starts screaming. He's like, you messed this up. We had a roster move. Brewers are going to be pissed. Come on out of my office right now. Hung up the phone. I thought I was going to get fired. I'm like, he's never yelled at me. I don't know what I'm going to do. So I run down. I'm sprinting. It's 95-degree weather. I'm sweating. I knock on the door. He opens it, and he's like, all right, there's somebody here who I want you to meet. And the guy, his back is turned to me, and he turns around, and it's Ken Griffey Jr., and he's laughing hysterically at me.
That is awesome.
Darnell, we had our first interview, a while back, and I asked him who his favorite player growing up was, and he said Willie Stargell. And he asked me who my favorite player growing up was, and he remembered it was Ken Griffey Jr. So I got to talk to Ken Griffey Jr. for about an hour.
That's great.
I mean, my heart was in my throat, but he was just a great guy. We talked baseball, and his son at the time was playing football in Arizona, so we talked a little bit about football, and man, it was really cool.
That's awesome, boy. That's an experience that I felt like I was experiencing here through you. That's awesome. That's awesome.
Yeah. It was pretty cool. I'll never forget it.
That's amazing.
One of the perks of the job.
Definitely. Roman, you got any more?
Yeah, I got a question for you, Alex. I don't know this. So this is going to be a surprise to me. I would assume you have, but have you visited the Field of Dreams?
I have not, and there's a reason for that. So I was going to come out, a couple weeks ago, and I was taking my dog for a walk. My dog's actually barking in the background right now. And he started running after a person, and I sprained my ankle, actually. So on the day when I was going to come out, I was immobilized, and being able to tour the Field of Dreams, I would rather be able to walk and not crutch around. So that's still at a time to be determined. I'm going to make it out there. I mean, that's something that a movie, I think it's the second baseball movie that I've ever watched. So just being able to see that and understand the meaning that it has to the state of Iowa and just the sport of baseball in general, it is on my list of things to do. And at a time where I normally don't have time to do it. Normally you're calling a game or you're traveling, but now that unfortunately there's a little bit of downtime, hopefully I can find my keys and take a drive out.
Yeah.
That's great.
So do you hear, for you, do you have a lot of people, how often do you hear that side of the state, is this heaven? No, it's Iowa. I mean, because we hear it all the time, but do you hear it out in Des Moines at Principal Park? Yeah.
All the time. I mean, it's more of just the state mantra, whether you're at Principal Park or you're in Davenport or you're even in Clinton and I'm missing Davenport, Clinton.
Burlington.
Burlington, yes, and Burlington. Thank you. You just get that feeling that baseball is supposed to be played here. I mean, I don't care if it's a high school game, an American Legion game, a college game, a Woodbat Summer League team, or a minor league baseball game. It just feels that this is a state that baseball is supposed to be at. So you hear it everywhere. I mean, especially from my friends and my family that have come out here to visit me. It's like, oh, this really is heaven. Oh, you don't say. So yeah, it's fun.
That's great.
That's great.
It is. I always tell people when they ask, well, what's baseball like in the state? And I always say it's just like it was 50 years ago. It's in its golden age. Everyone's happy. The state is full of prosperity, and people love the sport, unlike most places I've ever been. And so that's what I compare it to.
I don't know if you guys have ever been to a game at Burlington, but it's kind of like American Legion on steroids. You just have that like little league field where you can see the sunset in the background and the trees are over the center field wall. And it literally feels like a Field of Dreams moment that you're going to have the baseball players of the 1920s just walk out and sing the seventh inning stretch with you.
That's it right there. Well, Roman, do you have any other questions? We're at the 33-minute mark.
Yeah, well, Alex, first, before we ask, we always ask all of our guests this, but first, where can fans find the Iowa Cubs on social media?
Yeah, just we have a Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, and it's pretty easy. It's just at Iowa Cubs. At Iowa Cubs on Twitter, at Iowa Cubs on Instagram, and then Iowa Cubs on Facebook. Trying to have a little bit fun, give fans some baseball content to watch during obviously a really tough time. I've been broadcasting MLB The Show simulations on Facebook. So I've had practice for this for like 30 years. This is great. I'm just it's like riding a bike. So just broadcasting these MLB The Show simulations, interviewing former players and coaches. We're doing that on Instagram, and we're doing that on Facebook as well. So just at Iowa Cubs. It's pretty easy.
Yeah, what you guys are doing on social media is impressive. I love it. You guys are a great follow. So definitely, Dreamers, if you're looking for something to keep you busy while locked at home inside, check out the Iowa Cubs for sure. And you don't need to be a Cubs fan, just a baseball fan. So, last question, Alex.
Okay.
If there was one message or one lesson to take from the Field of Dreams film, in your opinion, what is that?
I'm going to sum it up in a word. It's just baseball. I just remember growing up, and I went to summer camp growing up, and every Tuesday night, our side of the camp will watch a movie. We would go down to this place called Lakeside and just watch a movie. It was Sandlot, Little Big League, Rookie of the Year. And at that point, I was like 8 or 9 years old. I liked the kid movies. And then we watched Field of Dreams. And again, the content for somebody who's 9, 10 years old, I mean, it's serious. It's baseball. It views baseball more as a livelihood than it does of just a game. And understanding how much it meant to the state of Iowa and the community and bringing the historical context of the sport into it. It provided present-day baseball and the past history of the game and the, quote, America's pastime to me. So it really connected all the dots of what the sport meant to me and what it was going to mean to me at the time. So to sum it up in a word, it's just baseball. It's just what baseball should be.
That is a great answer.
It is. That might be the most unique answer we've got and the most well explained.
I was just going to say that. Yeah, a lot of people usually go with the go the distance right line, which Dan Evans did. Which, hey, good for him, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, he's not wrong. And a lot of our guests, it hits home. But that is so unique, the fact that you said that, because it speaks true to you. Yep. So that's awesome. That's great. Baseball.
Yeah. Well, do you have any questions for us? Any final closing comments? Anything?
Yeah.
I'm just wondering how you guys are doing during all this. I mean, for me, this is just a complete shock to the system because this time of year, I'm prepping for a game. I'm getting on a 2:30 bus to the airport, or it's a shock to my system. With you guys having so much build up for this summer, how are you guys going along?
For me, I'm working. Roman's at the field every day. I'm satellite right now and trying to make my way back there in the next month. Now, Roman and I probably have, 3 or 4 phone calls a day. Sometimes it's related to work. Sometimes it's, hey, what's going on? And that's the great dynamic in this working relationship here. And especially on the social media side, we have seen a huge uptick in followers and awareness that the Field of Dreams actually exists since the announcement. And so we've seen that continue, and it surely hasn't peaked yet. So it's been an interesting opportunity to communicate like this in more of a satellite way and bring the message to the viewers/dreamers in different ways. So it's been a test, but social media-wise, I would say it's been an amazing test. Roman obviously has even a different viewpoint than that.
Yeah, I mean, for us, it's an interesting time, right? Alex, a lot of downtime, but there's always work to be done, and we're getting a lot of busy work done right now, looking at other events that we've got for later this season. First Responders Appreciation Day, hopefully in July, but thinking about all those contingency plans and looking at it and being at peace with the unknown. All right, That's all you can do at this time. And in fact, for us, I was thinking about it just the other day. Field of Dreams is airing on television stations pretty much nonstop, it seems. Yeah. So if anything, it's good marketing for us, right? It puts it at top of mind.
It definitely is. I mean, I remember talking to you last year, and then we played Field of Dreams at the ballpark, and just it was something about watching Field of Dreams on a Jumbotron at a ballpark in Iowa that just kind of resonated with me. And what you guys have in this community, it really is special. I mean, it is synonymous with the state. And for me, being a Pennsylvania transplant who's moved all over the country, all over the world, seeing this and seeing it here, it's pretty special. And it's unlike something that I've really seen anywhere else that I've been.
Yeah. And we take pride in that. We're not only representatives of, baseball, but also the state of Iowa. And again, like you're an ambassador for the sport, but an ambassador for the state. And I feel that one of the many advantages of having this MLB at Field of Dreams game, whenever it does happen, and it will happen, here, is it's shedding light for those that are across the country and don't know baseball in Iowa, really.
Yeah.
Like, people play in their backyard. They play in churchyards. They play anywhere they can and out in the backyard and breaking a sweat. And they go in and they have dinner, right? They ring the cowbell, and that really happens. Like the Sandlot, yeah, that happens in Iowa. It's just raw and our site speaks to people is because it's simple. That's the beautiful thing about it.
Yeah, no, I mean, I definitely want.
We're just really looking forward to having people come out again when it's safe. Go ahead, Alex.
No, sorry, we're getting a little bit of a lag here, but no, I'm just looking forward to getting out to the site at some point soon, being able to meet you guys in person, and obviously do it under better circumstances where people can come out and enjoy it and not fear for their health. And at a time where baseball is back and the economy is booming and people are happy and people want to come down to the Field of Dreams or come to Principal Park and take in what they're supposed to take in Iowa in the summer, which is baseball. So,
amen to that. Amen to that. Well, I'd say that's about the best closing tune we could have right there. So, Dreamers, we'll send it off. Thank you guys for sticking around for this. If you are watching it on demand, don't forget to follow the Iowa Cubs and stay up to date with what Alex is doing over there, the Cubs as an organization, and everything going on for them. Follow us on social media at Field of Dreams movie site. Hit that gorgeous subscribe button. You guys know what to do. If you haven't watched the other shows, go back and watch them, and stay tuned for every Friday. Again, I'm Tucker LaBelle, social media coordinator for the Field of Dreams movie site, alongside Robin Weinberg, director of operations, and Alex Cohen, the play-by-play broadcaster for the Iowa Cubs. So, guys, thank you for tuning in tonight, and we look forward to seeing you next Friday. Stay healthy and enjoy that weekend.
Thanks, Alex, for joining us.
That was fun, guys. I really appreciate it. Thanks for having me.